at 32nd Street Magnet, and I supervised it when I was local district superintendent here in LA Unified 2 years ago before I retired. 32nd Street Magnet was one of my schools, and Dr. Laverne Brunt was the principal. She's now the director. She was promoted. I recommended her to that. She was a very good principal, and I'm not sure who now. But in any case, I'm running because primarily my colleague died in office, Martin Luther Mott, who is my longtime friend and had also been my colleague before she suddenly passed away in December. The community came and said, would you consider an appointment? And now I'm running for the seat now. I've been an educator at LA Unified for many years. I've also been superintendent of a local district here in LA Unified twice. I've been the superintendent in Inglewood, I've been the deputy superintendent in Compton, and I've been a deputy superintendent in Pasadena, so I've worked in 4 school districts. I live in the Crenshaw area, Crenshaw near Stockton, and I've been a teacher, counselor, dean, a registrar, a principal. I've just been about every position there was in public education. Why am I qualified for this position? Because I know quite a bit about how the system runs, and I know what it takes to make the school effective. I was also the principal of Washington High School. Some of you may know me because of that. I was principal there for 10 years, and the school went through a remarkable transformation, and it got a lot of attention. A movie was made about that experience. And I think sometimes I believe it was for the wrong reason. If a movie needs to be made of a school because it works, that suggests that's an unusual event. We don't expect that to happen, because the media pays attention to the unusual. So when schools work, that should be normal. When they don't work, and then become a working school, that becomes news. I taught at many schools. I taught at Jordan High School, where I think I met this young man right here. He was a student there years ago. That's true. I was there from 63 to 68 as a brand new teacher. Coming out of Louisiana, where I grew up in New Orleans. I taught at O'Shea. I was a dean. I taught at Bret Hart, where I was fellow program coordinator. I taught at Mount Vernon Junior High, Horace Mann, Dorsey High School, Washington High School. So I've been at 8, and I also taught at Gardena. I may have said that. I was at 8 different schools, so I know the neighborhood. I'm one of you. I'm a senior citizen. If somebody tells you they have an advantage because they're not a senior citizen, because they don't know what they're talking about. As long as you're on the top side of the grass, you have the advantage. Okay? And I'm glad to see you looking so well and so healthy. So I'm in this for your benefit. And you say, well, I don't have children in school, but these children out here are your children. If these children are not well educated, they become dangerous. If they're dangerous, you're not safe. And I love that sound that I hear there, children laughing. To be one of the most pleasant sounds I've ever heard. Some people can't stand children laughing and making noise. That's what children are supposed to do, laugh and make noise. So I don't have any problem with that. Maybe I'm biased because I don't have any children of my own, so I don't have to listen to them every day. Right? It's like grandparents say, I love to see you. I love to see you leave too. They go back home to your mama. But you are the reason I'm here, to make sure that our schools work. And I would like for you to tell me a little bit later, after the other people get a chance to talk, what are your primary issues? I can tell you all about mine, and I can't make promises to you. All I can say, if you really want to know what I'm going to do, look at what I've already done. And that'll be pretty much a good idea of what I will do as I move forward. Otherwise, I'm just speculating. I'm making you promises about stuff I can't do, never did, probably won't be able to do, but it might be a good soundbite. I don't have any sound bites for you, but I do have evidence of what is possible. And so I'll sit down at this point and you can do this, and I appreciate the opportunity. Some of the other families went to someplace on the other side of town, but I made a commitment to be here, especially to Tony, to Louis. I would not break that commitment, so here I am. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yourself, you have a unique background, and go ahead and speak on that. What is in your background that makes you qualified to be in this position?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha. I am a pastor at LAUSD Board District in the LAUSD community. I want to first just take a moment to just thank you all for having me and to introduce you to my first teacher. My mother is here, Teresa Manigault. Won't you just read her? My mother was an awesome preschool teacher, and I only know that she's an awesome preschool teacher because even to today I have students that she taught come up to me and say, I had your mom, she's my preschool teacher. I was inspired to be a part of this movement we call education by my mother and my grandmother, but more importantly by the fact that I know that we can absolutely make a difference in what we do. The Word of God teaches us that above all things, you must guard your heart. And children truly are the hearts of our community. And I want to see the guardian of your children. My background is this. I worked in the White House in the administration. I worked for Vice President Al Gore. I worked in the Department of Commerce during intellectual property and policy. I've worked in the most difficult boardrooms in this country. I've been in tough political situations as well. Right now, I'm an executive education professor at Howard University teaching business, and this is a completely online course, so I understand what innovative curriculum is. And I'm a special ed teacher here in Los Angeles Unified School District. I work with children who have the most difficult challenges and need the most amount of help. I was inspired to run because members of my congregation who have children in the district said that they needed representation, who had the vision, the energy to move District 1 forward. I'm not resting on what I've done in the past because I've been told that if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. And certainly looking at the dropout rates and looking at all of the difficulties that we face with the achievement gap in District 1, it's time for a new voice and for a new direction. I offer that. But more importantly, I am in the classroom every single day. I realize that there are people in this race who haven't been in the classroom for a long time, so they're understanding these challenges. They don't understand what our children need right now. But I will tell you that the parents talk to me after school every day. I stand out during dismissal and I talk to our young people. And they talk about their need for additional funding. And they talk about the fact that the children are not getting what they need, that there are teachers who are not getting the training that they need. You can tell I'm a bad speaker. As I close, I will just simply say that many of you got to know me on television from The Apprentice and Albert Trump. There's so much more to me than that. I'm first a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. My first job is being a pastor. And secondly, I am one who cares so much about our youth. When you ask why are you running, it's for the kids. I don't have any agenda. I don't have any agenda besides making sure that our kids get a quality education and that they get exactly what they need to succeed. And so I stand in front of you as a fresh new option to things that have been presented to you, put in a new package and sold as new, but it's not just the same old thing. And so I ask you to consider me as your next board member for District 1. Thank you.
In the audience, here we have a few teachers. All right, directed to which candidate you have any questions. I can keep going, but
No.
she's here to participate, though.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't want you to think of it.
Anybody have a
I'm
question?
Karen Gilmore, I'm a veteran teacher in the Unified School District. I teach second grade in that place. I also graduated from Dorset. So I've been a member of this community most of my life. I'm actually a refugee from the South. this is my home. And as a teacher, I am also very concerned about our education system, the private classrooms, the lack of funding, and the constant stress that's been put on teachers to make everything I know. And as I'm sure you're aware, we've been a very difficult struggle with our current superintendent, and we have gone to the front lines and campaigned to pass Prop 30 and to get school board members on the board. We thought we were going to be friendly and sympathetic to our situations, and it seems to have all been for naught. We put a demand form to our superintendent in January, which is yet to be responded to. And so I would like to know, moving forward, what is your plan to specifically reduce class sizes, increase funding, where we're implementing Common Core, we have no curriculum, no materials whatsoever, soon will be. What is your plan to make our job easier?
So class sizes in Common Core, and what is planned? That's what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. McKinnon?
Well, some of this goes together.
Sorry, 3 minutes, go ahead.
Without funding, you can't reduce class size. Class size requires more teachers and more rooms. So without funding, that's just a conversation, that's a wish. What we do need is to approach it from a state level, because we get money from the state. As regards to superintendent's decisions, I have been with the superintendent and have disagreed with him many ways. I disagree with decisions he made about Miramonte. I have to supervise that, and I didn't like doing it. I told him so. But I did it because I was directed to do that. I don't think he had to shut that whole school down and switch the teachers around and create the atmosphere that something was wrong with all those other teachers. I also don't necessarily agree with the iPad distribution, because I don't know what's supposed to be the goal for children after they get the iPad. But I don't know after 3 or 4 years what are you supposed to accomplish. And when they become obsolete, we're going to get more of them. It costs $1 billion. That's a lot of money we can do for other things. So school board members supervise the superintendent. My plan is to supervise the superintendent. I had to take direction from the superintendent as one of his superintendents. But he doesn't do it by himself. The board members approve everything he does. So they're the ones that have to be held accountable. There's 7 of them. I'm one of them. I'm trying to make sure District 1, which is the most underachieving school district, with the children with the least resources, the highest number of dropouts, the highest number of foster care children, highest number of single-family, greatest number of gangs in our community. I've dealt with that for a long time. So my plan is to hold that consciousness, and hold up a mirror to their conscience, and say, you don't know right from wrong, I do. But what I'm going to say to you is, teacher or non-teacher, if you send me there and I get there, you have finished your work. Because when we have an issue down at that board, and I call, I'd like to get that board room filled up, to let them know if you just send a single voice there for them to ignore when I begin to talk about the issue. I'm not there because of a personality. I'll be there because of the issue. I too would like to reduce the dropout rate. I would like to introduce a zero tolerance for dropouts as a policy. Not for the children themselves, but what do we need to reduce the dropout? You can't reduce the dropout by starting in high school. That's just where it happens. You have to start in the 3rd and 4th grade. And we need to make sure that children are skills ready, not subject matter ready. 3 basic skills: reading comprehension, writing, and problem solving. Sometimes people believe mathematics, but you also problem solve when you write. When you write, all the stuff in your head has to be organized so somebody doesn't know what you're talking about. If you get those 3 basic skills down, you can learn all the other subjects on your own time. But if you don't have those skills, you won't be able to move forward. That's my goal, to put the district on point of what's really necessary. Children cannot be ignored the way we've ignored them for years. And teachers do need raises, teachers need all the support in the world. And I'm not ready to fire a teacher. I'm ready to support a teacher. I've seen them fire them, and the board doesn't even say no to that. So my need is to make sure have with them. But I have been in the classroom full-time for many years, so I understand what it is.
Thank you. And now, if I understand the question correctly, this has to do with your plan for class size and common core.
Hey, Janina.
Could you speak on that?
First of all, I thank you for your service.
Great. There are people out here that do want to hear, so could you speak up? Or do
I
you want to...
will speak up, so let me directly address your question.
Okay.
I want to, first of all, thank you.
You should stand up, then it'll project.
Is that Georgie?
Yeah.
Hey, Georgie.
How you doing?
You know you can hear me. You got bionic ears.
Yeah, but when you stand up, it really goes further because we don't have anything, you know, no amplified stuff. And
I'm going to wait for him to get the logistics.
Okay. You started saying something. I'm going to say you have 2 minutes left. Go ahead.
You got the same time. Dr. Janine.
Yeah.
Let me first say that we informed the organizer that we did have multiple commitments collectively as a group, and so I wanted to come and meet with you all, introduce myself to you all, and spend some time with you, but I will have to leave very shortly. To answer your question, the person who is elected to fulfill this seat has exactly 9 to 10 months to do what they say they want to do. And we have already seen that the iPad situation has been adopted by this. No matter how broken or messed up it is. I was in the classroom with first graders with 25 iPads, but absolutely no curriculum on it. They said it's 8 games for the 45 minutes out of the game. Certainly, there's something wrong with it. There's a problem. But in that 10 months, fixing the iPad issue isn't going to happen. We have to figure out how to make the iPad issue work because we're not going to be able to distribute and deadline. What we will be able to do is to make sure that the LCFF funding is directed, make sure that it's directed properly and that the children get the resources that they need. It's not, you're not going to be able to eliminate it, but as a teacher, I can tell you how frustrated I am because I took the practice test maybe 3.5 weeks ago. You know, we're testing the test, and there were so many flaws, structural flaws. The way it's structured, the way it's implemented, and most of the teachers that were taking it with me could not operate the iPad, had never functioned on an iPad, and could not teach young people how to work this iPad. And so certainly there are issues. But in that 10 months, I'm not going to make promises that I'm going to wave a wand around and fix every problem because you have exactly 10 months. But what I can assure you, what I can assure you is that you will have someone who will not be ignored, pushed around, who understands how to get things done at the highest level, whether I'm in the board or the President of the United States, or whether I'm going one-on-one with parents of the first grader. You've had that commitment from me. Those are the things that I can get done in the 10 months, realistically, that you have to get done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janine,
Pleasure to meet all of you all.
you arrived late, and the teacher asked a question, and I let her repeat it for the 2 areas that we're speaking of. What is your interest?
Yes, I'm concerned about the rollout of the technology rollout of LAUSD. And the money for LAUSD. And I feel that they need the management of those class sizes and to purchase curriculum materials that will need to be helpful. And so I'm wondering if the school board can do that as our consumer to spend the monies that we have to teach you. And we went out there on the front lines and we wanted to help in a way that actually will help our kids and help us to do our job.
Before you start, Janine, I want to make sure, this is a very important question that she brought up, and it's a point that we are going to get to. I want to give Dr. McKenna a chance again after Janine answers this. To go over what we're looking at is the idea, teachers are concerned that money has been spent on technology. All right, there wasn't much discussion on that. There was a move made and it's over. And so the over is that there are teachers concerned that their class sizes are too large, and the money should be spent on that to reduce the class size, hire some more teachers. They're also concerned about this thing they call Common Core. So now, Janithia, in 3 minutes, go ahead and do what you can with that.
First of all, I really want to apologize for being late, but there were multiple places where people needed to be, but I do apologize.
Speak up.
Could you stand up?
I can stand up.
There, that works.
Is that better, George?
Well, the bodies don't dampen the sound.
First of all, with iPads, there really isn't anything that we can do about that right now because the money's been spent. $1 billion that could have been used for something else. The other thing that we have to understand as a community, though, is that there is a challenge right now to whether or not that is the way that the money should have been spent. That money actually, that $1 billion actually came out of the bond fund. And there is language in the bond fund that says what bond fund will be used for. The Citizens Oversight Committee now has a challenge in to say that that isn't really what the bond money should have been used for. So there's that piece of it that's going on right now. The second piece of it that's going on right now is that at no time did the school board ever ask a question about connectivity. There was no question about infrastructure before that happened. That's the job of the school board. The superintendent works for the board works for people. And the board should have questioned DZ closely about the details before they just said, okay, go ahead and spend $1 billion on iPads. Your issue about the content and Omarosa's issue that she brought up is that one of the things that DZ nor anybody else ever said to the public was the iPads were purchased, but it was not explained that there was going to need to be another $2.5 million per year that will be spent putting content on because Apple partners only with your teachers. Teachers didn't have money for staff development. The other problem that I see with technology in the classroom with this whole notion about iPads is this. Because LAUSD and other districts in the state of California got waivers, our test scores are not going to be shared with the public until school year 2017-2018. So all of this is going to happen over the next 3 years. Is going to be waivers. I'm not clear why we would have spent $1 billion for iPads when we had a waiver. We got a waiver along with 5 other school districts, and there will be no test scores reported out to the public anyway. I'm looking at you, so you didn't know that, did you?
And then about the waiver, I'm talking to the company.
2017, we had already, LAUSD, along with 7 other school districts in the state of California, had already applied for a waiver before this $1 billion was spent on those iPads. And so there's not going to be any reporting anyway, so there should not have been a rush to spend $1 billion to practice. I agree with you, but I do also happen to know that bond money can't be used to reduce class size because that would have meant that the bond money would have been spent on salaries, but they can't spend on it at all. But for me, the real issue was anybody stop and think to ask how schools were in fact structured. Was there the infrastructure, that kind of technology? Was there connectivity? Was there staff development for teachers, for students? All of those things that should have been thought about before. And it's actually not the Common Core, it's the smart balance test that you all are giving kids in California. And nobody has seen the test. You all haven't seen it, nobody has seen it, nobody knows what it is that you're supposed to be aligning your curriculum to. I am not opposed to technology. I'm not opposed to technology in the classroom, but I think this was a bad deal, and I think that it was $1 billion that was spent.
Okay, Dr. McKenna, on the issue of class size and Common Core, I'm wondering, let's really get into Common Core and really understand what that's about. Dr. McKenna, would you like to educate us about that?
Well, my understanding of Common Core is that it is a teaching strategy. It's an instructional strategy. It may even be an experiment. Some people oppose it right now, Common Core. The most important people in the school, outside of the children, are the teachers, who have to know how to teach a particular subject. Knowing a subject and teaching a subject are two different things. Common Core is supposed to teach you how the teachers have to use more depth in the subject field as opposed to breadth, trying to cover X number of pages and consider that a successful semester or a successful year, where they go deeper into analytical skills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the Common Core is a teaching methodology. It is not a testing process. After Common Core is taught to teachers, then they teach it to children. Then how we test for mastery, how we test for outcomes is a different process. And as technology is supposed to be used to test for the outcomes of the student outcomes. But the testing of the students, which will be probably standardized testing, has very little to do with whether the teachers are effective in how they teach what they teach. And unless we can train the teachers, and I've always said, you know, training the teachers, and teaching the teachers rather, is more challenging and more important than teaching the students. It's like when you get on an airplane and they say, put the mask on yourself first before you put it on the children, because the children can't put the mask on themselves. Without a choir director, you don't have a choir. Just got a bunch of children shouting and singing, but they're not directed, they're not learning music, they're just shouting. And so teachers are very critical in this process. Protecting teachers, supporting teachers, giving them the resources they need should be priority one. If you do that, you have an opportunity to keep kids in school longer, keep them on skill level, grade level, skill sets as they move through the process, instead of promoting them just because they have birthdays and they still have second and third grade skills. So the other thing that I'm challenged about, our children don't need to be guinea pigs for experiments. And we have a lot of people use the word reform, and they really can't tell you it's going to work until they try it out. But who do they try it out on? They try it on our children. And then they compare our children to other people. The district is now celebrating the fact that they lowered the dropout rate and increased the graduation rate. That's district-wide. If you disaggregate that data and say, well, what about District 1? It hasn't really made a difference. So we're being caught up in the celebration that the whole district has reduced the dropout rate and increased the graduation rate, but it hasn't really happened in District 1 with any appreciable amount. So when we start talking about distribution of funds, what are you going to give to the neediest? The neediest are in District 1, which is where you are right now. As a school board member, there's only going to be one from District 1, there's only 7 of them. They can't be persuasive with those other 6 board members. Then the superintendent and anybody else, and the billionaires and anybody else who have products to sell, because when you bought those iPads, they bought them from somebody. They didn't buy them from us. They bought them from other people who make big money selling products. Curriculum is a big business. Technology is a big business. Whether children learn or not, big business is still a part of public education. LA Unified School District has a bigger budget than the city of Los Angeles. We have more money to spend. We have more personnel. We have just about everything that the city has. The only thing we don't have more than is police officers. But we have the 3rd largest police force in the county of Los Angeles, second only to the sheriff and the LAPD. LA Unified School District has that many police officers. And I remember when we had no police officers. Prior to 1965, there was no such thing as a police officer. It was a deed, those kinds of things. Now we have hardware instead of hardware. People with guns and badges and lights and, automobiles and stuff like that. So I'm not knocking police, but I'm saying that as we continue to expand police, we act like we need police instead of they're supposed to keep the people on the outside away from the school, not arrest the children on the inside and criminalize them because of foolish things that they do. Children do foolish things every day. That's what children do. Children stuff, childish stuff. I did it, you did it. How do we get to be adults? We did all kind of foolishness. But we had fun doing it. And so we had adults and parents and people that tell us what not to do, keep us on the straight and narrow. I'm not offended by that. It happens every year. But I don't want to criminalize children. So the Common Core is a way of teaching. It's a methodology. If you don't know it, and they don't teach it to you, you can't deliver it to the children. We just say this is Common Core, and teachers are still struggling to go back to their own way that they've always done it. We have a tendency to revert to what we know how to do, as opposed to something new that you just gave me, and I can't figure it out, so I go back to what I know how to do.
Thank you, to both of you, Janikia and Dr. McKenna. This Common Core thing, I just want to shut this down right now real quick. It started out as an international question. America, how do you measure your students? And here's how we're doing it around the rest of the world. So somebody in America, I don't know who the personalities are, said, Janikia.
Common Core actually has been around for 20 years.
Okay.
And it came out of a meeting of governors from all the states in the U.S. who said, we would like to develop a way to make sure that students in every state in the Union knew, understood, and could do a certain set of things. Their real concern was about the mobility of people in the United States. So if a kid lived in California and he moved to Michigan, and he moved from Michigan to Alabama, and he moved from Alabama to so forth and so on, there was going to be a common set of skills that they wanted all young people to know and be able to do at every grade level, and it was only going to be in two areas, mathematics and English and language arts. Every state then was to create a test that benchmarked itself against the skills that kids were supposed to know in those two areas. California is developing a test right now that's called the Smart Balance Test. And it is going to be benchmarked against those Common Core standards. There's a lot of confusion about Common Core. And George is right. Common Core doesn't have anything to do with what you all are going to do in the classroom. It's the Smart Balance Test that's going to be benchmarked against Common Core, against those standards where they're saying all students who are in 5th grade should know and be able to do this Common Core thing, these common sets of skills. The Smart Balance Test now then should have more rigor in it, meaning that you should be teaching, not broadly, but you should be teaching in depth. And the testing now is going to be something that's called adaptive testing.
1 minute.
Where a student will answer a question. If they get that question right, they'll be asked another question that asks for more understanding, more depth of understanding. If they get that question right, they'll go on to another question where they'll be asked for yet more depth of understanding in that subject area. The issue for me is that we have a waiver. So we won't know how our children are doing until 2017, 2018. LAUSD will be releasing no test scores. They'll be releasing other kinds of information, but no test scores will come out until 2017, 2018. I'm concerned about what's going to happen for those 3 years, and how are we going to hold people accountable for annual, yearly progress for students if we can't see what their actual test scores are. I'm also concerned about the fact that we are testing children to death, which doesn't give teachers enough time actually to teach children anything. If they're spending all year long trying to get kids ready to take a test, and every 4 or 5 years the test changes and the teachers have to change, my concern, especially for young people in District 1, is when does a teacher, a competent, capable teacher, have the opportunity to teach?
At this stage, is there anybody here that has a question for Dr. McKenna?
I have a question.
This lady, raise your hand first.
I have a question, and I'm trying to phrase it well
Okay.
for your understanding, because I don't know if I can put it in a way that I should address it to the school. I'm trying to see how can we change the dress code or put a dress code on the students, so they won't come to school sagging and doing all those things. Are the parents responsible, or is the school able to put a dress code so these children won't come to school looking like whatever they look like, the pants sagging, and the girls with the midriffs out. So I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say.
Dress code, Dr. McKenna. Who's in charge?
Well, the individual school is responsible for implementing the dress code. There's two things that you have to separate. There's something called school uniforms and school dress code. Schools that have uniforms, students must wear the uniform. If they don't have the uniform, the school is obligated to provide something similar to the uniform, the same color scheme, and help the students get the uniform. Dress code means what you can't wear. It doesn't tell you what you must wear. And when you see students on the street looking a certain way, it doesn't mean it's necessary to get inside the school to do that. I've known students that tell their parents they're dressing right and they change the way they look on the street. But when they get to the school, it's on the principal and the teachers to make sure they don't look like that on the school site. So if we don't want to have sagging, if we don't want to have hats, we enforce them in the school. On the school campus, it's our house, not the parents' house. The parent can't say, my child must come with a hat, and he will sag, and he will bag, and he will, parents can't say that. And he will wear curlers in his hair. Can't do that. When I was a principal, I had to stop kids from wearing curlers in their hair. Back in the day, they were wearing curlers in their hair. And I said, no curls. Well, they never heard that before. So I said, no curls. So I had this father come up there one day, he was fussing in the office, he was a great big dude. And he was saying, why can't my child wear curls? So he called for me. I came in there, when I looked at him, he's 6'4", he got curls in his hair. So I said, let's step outside so we can talk. And I explained to him, I don't care what you look like and how you look at your house, but on this day, this is my house.
Yes.
And your house, you wear what you want to wear. So a dress code can be enforced by the school site. You don't even need the district to enforce it, as long as it's not illegal. The other girls, they can't get their belly button show, the skirts can't be too high. The district doesn't have to approve that. You just set that as your standard in the school. That's what a principal does. Keep position that the principal should. And if you don't tolerate it, then the teachers know that they get back on it. If they say, you're not dressed properly, go down. I had to dress girls myself. Put sweatshirts on. They're all exposing themselves, got makeup all over the place. I took one of her, she's grown today. She said, you remember when you scrubbed my face? I said, I remember when I scrubbed your face. You're not the only one's face I scrubbed. Because it didn't look right. She had all that stuff on her. Her mother didn't even know she looked like that. She went to the bathroom and decorated herself and said, that's good. I said, no, you can't do that, right? So the deal is this. We, on the school site, are responsible for what the kids look like inside school. Now, what they look like when they're walking down the street, they might, like immediately, they'll switch up and go around this way. But you have to remember something else. Some of these kids dress a certain way for protection. Because in the neighborhood that they live in, it might be dangerous. And they want to look like they affiliate with those gangsters on the street, the gang members. They're not a member of the gang, but they want to act like you leave me alone if I look like this. I wear a certain color, I let a rag hang out the back of my pocket. I'm not a member of the gang, but I'm signifying, let me get home safely. A lot of kids do that. Girls carry sometimes kitchen knives in their purse, just for protection. They're breaking the law, but they hope they don't get caught because they feel unsafe in the streets in which they live. It's up to the school to try to change all of that.
Thank you. I want to say that Dr. McKenna and I became a teacher actually watching that movie that Denzel Washington did, and that has a lot of facts in it. And the dress code is something very, very strong about, and not just talking. He's living the activity of controlling the mass out there. But are you clear? Can you say in your own words to repeat what you said? What do you understand now as to what you said? Who has the control of the dress code in the school?
Well, each school has each individual school can do what they would like to do at their individual school. So I'm thinking that the district is not able to do that. Each school has to set their own standards for the dress the way they want their children to come to school.
Dr. McKenna, is that correct? Is that what you said?
Well, I don't know if you interpret it. Let me put it this way. The district is given, all children will learn. The district can say that. It's up to the school to make sure it happens. So when the district said, this is our general dress code, the school doesn't do that. The district doesn't have to spend time telling each school what kids should look like. But the school principal can establish the dress code inside the general guidelines. And all dress codes tell you what you can't wear. Uniform policies tell you what you must wear. That's two really different. A uniform tells you you must wear this. You must wear blue, khaki, so that's your uniform. Dress code tells you what you can't wear flip-flops, can't wear a hat. Tells you all the stuff you can't wear. And the student uniform code tells you what you must wear. And if you can't afford the uniform, you're obligated to provide you at least one.
She did have the basic message that you gave her was at the school site. The school is in charge.
Implementation.
Yes.
The school is responsible for
It's very
implementation.
important that we get something as we're walking away here. You're clearer now than when you first were talking. All right? Thank you, Dr. McKenna. Now, Tony, where are you? Over here. Okay. So, I just want to say at this stage right now that what we're doing is exchanging. And you had your hand up before. I don't want to get you. Go ahead. This is another teacher, Mary Cantor.
I am retired from Marlton School up in the Mall, so I'm quite at home in your community. And I vote in District 1. And I have a daughter who graduated all through LA Unified. I'm also still active in the teachers union. Karen and I are colleagues. I want to put out some concerns that I have, that I've picked up from other teachers and listening to them.
Two concerns. Go ahead.
One, I'm coming from special ed. The special ed centers are engagers. They perform a special culture, a special environment that these kids cannot get on a regular campus. And if the district really looks at the legal needs that special ed kids are entitled to, whether they're on a special campus or a general ed, it's actually more expensive to put them on a general ed campus than the special ed. The district really needs to look at the needs of special ed children and not just the dollar signs. I am concerned.
So what is special ed?
Okay.
Okay.
Another thing is power, and I tie it with private money, I tie it with the charter movement. I remember the Crenshaw-Dorsey charter here under Barbara Boudreau. My school benefited from it, but it seems to me that charter schools are not held to the same accountability that public schools, and they are siphoning teachers, they are siphoning money from the public schools. They have to be held to the same standards, and I don't see where it is. And how I tie that in with private money is the concern about privatization of public schools. And people are using money to buy power, and I feel that too many charter schools are being bought to abuse the power with money. Can I say anything else for it?
What we'll do right here is it okay if I put this to Genethia?
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
Genethia, four questions that you can please ask me about.
The fact that special education is being neglected in LAUSD. Special education youngsters need to kind of be pushed back burner. That's your first question. And what can be done about that? And your second question is you are very concerned about charter public schools. And you want to understand about the proliferation of charter public schools because they're not held to the same standard. Those are your two questions, right? Okay, so a partial answer to the first question is you're right about special education, in my opinion. But you know, the law was changed. And so when the law got changed in the state of California, there was this whole notion of integrating special ed youngsters into the regular student population. And then they were going to have the support that they needed. So the regular classroom teacher was going to have help because the special ed teacher was going to come in and they were going to work with the children. And I don't think that that ever happened. I think what happened was special ed youngsters got integrated into the larger school population. We closed up places like Sophia Solvang, we closed up a lot of our special ed schools. Except for the children who had the most challenges, and usually those were physical challenges, so that those youngsters, couldn't actually function on a school campus. I have always believed that we don't do enough and we don't pay attention enough to make sure that youngsters who have challenges are prepared to be able to support themselves and to be able to be sustaining, contributing members to society, because they're only going to be available in public schools until they're 18. And I think we haven't done a good job with special ed. We don't really look at special ed. Nobody really talks about special ed. With the charter school, unfortunately, charter schools are really public schools. They're charter public schools. And the school board itself charters those schools. It's not like charter schools pop up and they just come from someplace kind of like they just, like Topsy, they just grew and grew. Charter schools are chartered by the local education agency, and that is the Los Angeles Unified School District. You can get chartered by LAUSD, you can get chartered by the county, and you can get chartered by the state of California. But as charter schools have proliferated, it is the board who has said, we are going to, in fact, accept these charter applications. Now, the way the charter school law reads, the reason that they're not held to the same standard is because when the law was written, now I guess people weren't paying attention, 70% of the ed code is lifted for charter schools. They do not have to do the things that a traditional public school has to do. There were some trade-offs. 70% of what's in the education code in the state of California is not applicable to charter public schools. The trade-off was they would not be able to get money from the bonds that were passed to be able to build schools. But also in the law, if there are empty classrooms on school sites, the law says those empty classrooms must be offered to charter schools first to co-locate a charter school on that campus. And so, while I hear your concern, it's the way the law was written and people weren't paying attention. We simply were not paying attention to the fact that these are public schools. They do get the same $8,200, $8,400 in average daily attendance money. And then 80% of what every other school has to comply with, they don't have to comply with. They can do fundraising. They can get additional money, as you say, from wealthy people. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing illegal about that. The question for me is whether or not we are evaluating them the way that we're evaluating traditional public schools. Not so much whether there's a proliferation of them, but when it comes to evaluating them, to really understand, really are they doing better with youngsters? If they are, if they're educating kids effectively, that's one thing. But if we discover that a charter public school is not doing any better than the school down the street, then we need to rescind the charter. If the charter public school is doing worse than the school down the street, then we need to shut the charter down. We have more charter schools in Board District 1 than any other district in LAUSD. More charter schools right here in Board District 1. And a part of that reason is because we were not actually asking the right questions. We should have been wondering why so many charter public schools were here in the inner city.
I'm going to excuse myself, seeing I'm not really having a voice. There's other places where I can use my voice, so I'll pass out flyers.
Would you like to speak on this charter school issue?
No, I feel that, I've made to be felt uncomfortable and not participating and left out. So here's my information. I think I'm a valuable voice, and I can go use my voice.
Would you like to give a question concerning the charter?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel that, because I decided to make a stand, that I decided to leave, that you were willing to integrate me, but I've been here all the time and you bypassed me, so I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm in agreement. I wish you would have agreed with because what we can do, not having any familiarity. By the way, these two candidates that are here now, they've participated thus far in a written expression. So this is a forum that on the internet, there's going to be their written expression coming up before the public. A total stranger that's not engaged in that, it's not fair to the people who have been engaged. Okay? If the clerk had given you your name, you would be in.
Yeah, you called me.
Okay.
I was told, that's why I'm here.
I didn't call you. Thank you. What we have is, this is coming up about charter schools. You have 5 minutes if you wish to have. And the question is this. Charter schools started off as an experiment. Okay, and what has happened is somewhere along the line, they became a norm. That's no longer an experiment and was more of a competing force against traditional public schools. Could you say to us, in your opinion, are charter schools better than or not as good as traditional schools, and could you validate what you're saying?
Well, that's a big, broad question. I can't validate charter schools in general or public schools in general. Each school individually, see if they're effective. There are public schools that are ineffective, and they still remain. The building still stands, the faculty is still there, and the children still don't perform well. There's some public schools that are exceptional. 32nd Street Magnet, for example, is one of them. Exceptional school. Some other schools in local District 7, I was there, exceptional schools. And they're right in the middle of the project. There's some charter schools that work well and some that are not. I want to refer to 2 things here. One, I want to get back to the question about special ed. That's also not a clear-cut case of what's right and what's not right. I won't say what's wrong. I've been to the schools where they have disabled children, and they do a wonderful job. Those teachers are saints. Some of those children will be disabled all their lives. Their parents love them, their teachers love them, they can't walk, their bodies are twisted, their speech is affected, it's a lifelong handicap. And yet they're loved and they're appreciated, and how they can integrate into regular society is a mystery to me because they are severely handicapped. Now, should they be on a regular campus? I've seen some of the same children on regular campuses and other children are advantaged by it because they learn to help these children. They learn to care about them. They learn to see them as normal, but just a condition that is not something they should be shunning or walking away from or being afraid to be in their presence. And I'm talking about children with severe disabilities. On the other hand, the teachers who work in these special needs schools are very specialized in their training, and they are very exceptional in the work that they do. And I think it's a matter of choice whether the parents want to send them to such a school where they're all special needs kids, or do you want to what we call mainstreaming, putting them on a regular campus. And it's different based upon the needs of that child. Some parents insist that my child be mainstream. Sometimes the teachers are very challenged. Now all the different teachers they have to go to are challenged by how do they help this child. They have to have a one-on-one person helping them, aid all day long to roll their chair or do some things for them or clean their diapers and things of that nature because they have severe needs. And the regular teachers sometimes can't handle that. And so you're going to put that child in your class, and how do you handle that? Well, I don't know what to do. I'd rather him not be there. I had the experience of teaching a blind child, trying to teach geometry at Dorsey High School to a blind child. You ever try to draw pictures on the board and you realize the child can't see that? So you have to describe where the angles are and have to learn how to describe with words what this child can't see. Can't see me, can't see the board, can't see anything. And those are very challenging. Now, the second part about that is charter schools. Some charter schools are exceptional. They do a good job. And they're here to stay because it's the law now, right? There is private enterprise in there, right? And some people do want that money for the big conglomerates. There's some small charter schools that the people are just trying to do the best they can to educate the children. In my opinion, charter schools became appealing, but public schools weren't working, and parents wanted an option. I won't continue to send my child to this school when it won't work, when it doesn't work. And in my opinion, the key person in whether a school works or not is the principal of the school. I'm not blaming the principal, I'm holding them accountable. People think the principal has power. They don't. They have responsibility. I've had no power in any position I ever held. I've only had responsibility. For everybody, I'm responsible for grass. I'm not a gardener. I don't know how to cut the grass. I don't have a lawnmower. But if the grass is dry and brown and it's dirty, I'm the principal. I'm responsible for making sure somebody puts grass on my field, cleans my restroom. I'm not the custodian, but I have to hold them accountable. So the principal of the school is a key person. But with regard to charter schools, they're not going away. The question is, do the public schools want to be competitive, or do we want to be complainers about the charter schools are taking my children away? Yes, they can take your children away if the parents say, I'm voting with my feet, and they walk away. Now, do you say, are you taking the teacher's job? Well, the teachers can work for the charter schools. Some of them do. Some of them are willing to work at the charter school. The charter schools also said, we don't have to take these teachers. We'll fire them on the way. I saw that movie, Waiting for Superman. What I saw in that was, the teachers themselves said, that teacher's not working out. We as a faculty get rid of that teacher. You can't do that in a public school. So they have some benefits and they have some disadvantages. Because getting rid of a teacher that's not effective or an advantage, it may be to the children, it's not to the teacher, because the teacher then loses his or her job. So we're talking about the issue of, if they don't unionize them, then people are upset about that. So it's a political issue as well. Is it programmatic or political? Parents are tired, and they should be, of schools that don't work. When they made a movie out of the school in which I work, I still say it's made for the wrong reasons. Why do you need to make a movie out of a school because it works? If it works, it's so unusual, it should have worked all along. But because the people weren't outraged, they let it stay that way. And when it began to work, we celebrated. Instead of celebrating when it did work, we should be outraged when it doesn't work. Are we sufficiently outraged? And are the teachers saying, we will make this school work, because it's the faculty, not one person. The principal is the key one person. But if the faculty doesn't buy into that and say, we can do this on our own, it won't happen. We can lower class size to 15, to 10. For some people, that's no complaint. That's too many. I don't know what the right class size. I really don't. I can't tell you. I know the magic bullet number: 20 to 1, 19 and a half to 1, 23 and a half to 1. I don't know. I've seen some teachers work well with 35. I've seen some teachers struggle with 7. Depends on who the teacher is, and it also depends on the skill sets of the children. If they have a diverse skill set, the more children, the more difficult. If they're all at grade level, you can handle more kids all at grade level, because they're all getting it the first time. It's like that.
Now, Karen's last question already. Is there anyone else in here has a question for the candidates? Please.
Okay, my question is, what changes would you make to decrease the dropout rate?
Is it okay if Jimmy can?
Oh, certainly. Okay, I would like to, yeah.
Jimmy, can you give that in 3 minutes?
Well,
Too bad about that.
I think the school has responsibility for doing something about the dropout rate, but I also think that parents in the community have a responsibility for reducing the dropout rate. One of the other things that I think is important for us to understand is that the dropout rate doesn't happen in high school. We lose students in grade 4. That's really when students begin to drop out. Because this is what has to happen. Young people in grades K through 3 should be taught to read. They are learning to read. In grades 4 through 12, they must read in order to learn. So if you have young people who are not readers at the end of 3rd grade, and they move into 4th grade, where there are 1 million new words in every textbook, 1 million new words. Your basal reader jumps in 3rd grade and 4th grade by 1 million words. If the school, in my opinion, does not create a climate and a culture that makes that youngster comfortable, if the school does not create a climate and a culture that allows that youngster to figure out how schooling impacts their everyday life, and how schooling is going to help them get through life once they're finished with school, then kids are not likely to come to school. Why do you go to school if there's nothing interesting there for you, if nobody seems to care about you, if in fact you're struggling because you really can't read and keep up? But the part of that is what's happening with the parents in the home. Kids are in school 6 hours a day. And I am not letting the school off the hook. But for 18 hours a day, kids are someplace else. Now let's say that everybody gets their youngster in bed and they get 8 hours worth of sleep. They are still out of school for 10 hours a day. Parents have to impress upon youngsters about the importance of education, about the importance of going to school. And parents have to somehow or another join with the school as equal partners in going to the school and joining with the educators at the school to make sure that they understand what their job is and that the school understands what their vision is and their goals are and their beliefs are and what they want to happen for their children. But reducing the dropout rate is not easy because there are lots of things in our community that capture kids' attention. So you're going to have to work with the schools, the community, other community resources, before and after school programs. All of those things need to come into play, which is why that school should be the hub for the community in terms of educating everybody in the community. The school should be open. Community should be able to come into schools, and we should be able to understand what's going on in schools that are trying to educate all youngsters that walk through their doors. So it's not, it's not a one-thing answer, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it can be done. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that.
Please.
In order to, what I would propose, I'd like to propose a zero tolerance for dropouts policy in this district. We have a zero tolerance for weapons, put kids out of school. Zero tolerance for drugs, put them out of school. Zero tolerance for violence, put them out of school. What if we have a zero tolerance for dropouts? Not putting the children out of school, we would not tolerate a dropout. That a dropout would be a crime for us, not a real crime, but a crime for us to even accommodate that there's such a thing as a dropout. Just erase it. So if we said it's a matter of policy, then the consequence would be to us if children drop out of school. Now, what would we have to do? We just can't make a slogan and say, no dropouts today, no dropouts today. That's just a slogan. All children can learn. That's a slogan. Okay? So you need resources. When Gigi talked about in the 3rd and 4th grade, I agree with that. In the 3rd and 4th grade, if they're not reading on grade level, then somebody's got to intervene right then and there. Even with after-school programs, if they don't come to the after-school program, it's not going to work. So children who fall behind stay behind, and they get further and further behind. And by the time they get to high school, because they have birthdays, they wind up in the 9th grade or 4th grade skills, you can't get a graduate. I taught high school. I was a principal. I was in multiple high schools. You can't do it. It's a myth. Now, one of the things you can do is extend the school day, not extend it, flexible school hours. Some kids have to work when they get to high school. So sometimes a dropout is not necessarily a skills deficient child, especially with the Latino kids. They have to work. They don't have to work, but they do go to work. The boys go to work. And so you're 15, 16 years old and you're in high school and you're going to work. But can you work? Can you go to school from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the evening? Can we keep adult schools open? Are we closing? What about voc-ed? Why do we close voc-ed? When I was a principal, I refused to close my shops. Okay? Now, the parent piece, the parents sometimes don't know that their children are falling further and further behind. A disengaged parent came from parents who were also disengaged. So they weren't accustomed to coming to school. One of the things we can do with parents, I'm going to try to be quick about it, in every school there are a group of parents whose children do well, elementary, middle, high school. Organize the parents of the children who do well. They form a group. There's a name for this group. It's called Parents of Children Who Do Well. And those parents can be recruited to help some other parents in the same school who raise their hands and said, I'd like some help. Not to visit their homes, not to tutor their children, just to tell them what they do when their children get home. You're a successful parent. I'm not. I said I needed some help. So you meet with me, and you sit down, I give you a little in-service, how to teach me, tell me what you do when your child gets home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Between 4 o'clock and 10 p.m., what goes on in your home? Then you take my phone number. Maybe there are 2 of you working with me. And you take my phone number, and you call me several times a week, or maybe 3 or 4 times, and you keep that up for about 8 weeks. Then I get to believe that you really care about me, so I start trying to do this instead of I hear the sermon in church and I go back to doing the same stuff I always did, and I come on Sunday, I get the same old sermon, and I keep doing the same old stuff. But if you stay on top of me, I begin to change my behavior, because I did say I wanted some help. And you don't even have to have children. You can be grandma, mother dear. Used to have some children, but you know how to raise children. The parents need help in the home, and the churches can help with that. And I've been so disappointed because the pastors have really disappointed me. I told them I could find the kids in my school who's supposed to be in that church whose parents need help. They say, oh, yes, and then they go away and don't do anything about it. because it's too hard to do. This is hard to do. If it were easy, we would have done it a long time ago. If some people are not willing to do the hard stuff, the schools won't change. I was principal of a school where people are afraid to go to it, waiting list to get out. Turned it into a school that kids couldn't wait to get in, had a waiting list to get in. You think that was easy? I took a lot of heat. I got a lot of blood on me. I got disparaged by people. They called me all kinds of names. They still do. I'm okay with that, because there are too many kids that say, I benefited from this school. I'm glad I went to Washington Prep. And poor kids can call themselves perfect. That's just one example. That wasn't a miracle. That's just hard work. Miracles was when a black man becomes president of the United States twice. That's a miracle. But that takes hard work too.
That's a miracle. I want to touch upon the subject here. Dr. McKenna and First Genethia. And it has to do with this topic that there's a lot of, I notice that when I travel, and I speak to people especially from Europe, they're much clearer, not that their societies are perfect, they're much clearer when it comes to matters concerning ethics. And I think
Concerning what?
Ethics.
Ethics.
Ethics. And if we're looking at a school district, then we're thinking of professional ethics. All right, Genethia, could you take a minute just to start off on this topic, to just give us your definition of what comes to mind when you hear that word, ethics, within the realm of education?
Well, for me, it's within the realm of anything. It's not just education. But when we're talking about ethics in education, what comes to my mind is when you get a credential and you're a licensed teacher, you have an ethical responsibility to, first of all, continually improve your practice. Second of all, you need to go into a classroom and your ethical behavior has to tell you this. Every youngster in this classroom that I face every day can learn to the highest level. And it is my job to make sure that that happens. That's what creates an ethical teacher. Anybody can go to school and go to college and get a BA and go through a teacher training program and come out on the other side and get a credential. But ethical behavior is, how do I, in fact, then deliver services to every kid in an ethical manner, so that I'm not saying black kids should have one thing, Latino kids should have another thing, poor children I don't need to worry about because they won't work at McDonald's anyway. The ethical teacher walks into a classroom and sees all the possibilities for every youngster in that classroom and makes sure that those opportunities and those possibilities are developed to the fullest possible level.
Thank you for making that point of clarity that, in the teaching profession there are different professions, and you touched upon a large group of teachers. Dr. McKenna, you speak on, and as an administrator, ethics. You as an administrator and concerning to a school, what comes to mind when we hear that term? We want to learn something from you right now.
Well, I think ethical behavior can be found in any profession in anyone's life, and unethical behavior as well. It's called human nature. People have a tendency to behave based on their own basic human values and what they learn, which you call home training, and then in the profession, what's fair and what's not. The ethics of a principal will affect the whole campus, what they will tolerate, what they won't tolerate. The ethics of a teacher. Sometimes teachers are very ethical, but they're not effective. Sometimes principals are ethical, but they're ineffective. And they swear to God that they are a fair-minded person, and they are, but they're just ineffective. It doesn't mean they're not competent, but they're ineffective. It's like Shaquille O'Neal at the free throw line. He's competent because he got a uniform on, but he can't make a free throw, okay? And that means at that moment he's ineffective, so you don't give him the ball at the free throw line. So everybody can't be effective in everything, okay? Now, if in fact we're talking about ethics, how do we help teachers who may be afraid of children? Okay? There's some teachers who work in another part of town, they have all kinds of awards. They come on this side of town, and the children frighten them. I understand that. So they really don't belong here. They belong in the profession, but not here, because they can't bond with those children. They have a cultural disconnect with the children. And And so the ethics has to do with how do I see these children as assets or do I see these children as disturbances? Do I see the benefit that they see? If they don't see it in themselves, can I give it to them? Is the black male frightening or is he heroic? And if you treat him as something to be afraid of, he'll try to be more frightening because he's got you afraid of him. And he's enjoying that power. That's what gangbangers do. They think they're fearsome. They think they make you afraid. They don't think that they want you to be afraid of them. And they're afraid themselves. But in a group, they embolden themselves and they create an alternative reality and tell themselves, this is real. And I can't even go across the street because that's a different color. I don't even own, rent, lease, or pay taxes on any of this property, but I call it mine because I wrote that name on the wall. That can be taken away from them if you use what I call the love agenda. You don't need a bullhorn and a baseball bat to do this. I've never been unarmed. I've always used love as a weapon to emancipate and pro children. That's called ethical behavior. Don't let them get away from it. That's called ethical behavior.
Thank you very much. Both of you are very correct in your definitions, giving us some understanding. There's this thing, the school district. There are administrators, there are teachers. There are rules and regulations that are negotiated through union. And you as a board member, and each of you will get a chance to give us a word on this. You as a board member have the ultimate position in the school district. Like Dr. McKenna said earlier, the board tells the superintendent what to do. Okay, so however the school district is behaving, it's directly concerned with what is the board, what do they want? That's why the district is a certain way. It's a democratic process, so there's not one individual dictating to everybody else. However, you as a board member in this District 1, do you look at ethics as a major concern to be dealt with? Are there improvements that are needed? And give us some general areas of concern where we could have some improvement on ethics, or maybe you have no concern about District 1 ethical standards. Geneva first.
Well, I think that first of all, you have a school board that hasn't really talked about what they're saying is on ethics. If you have 7 people on the school board who have not ever bothered at an open meeting to say what their priorities are, what their goals are, what their objectives are, how they're going to measure success, what success looks like, and what they believe what we're now calling ethical behavior looks like. I have never, and I was on the board from 1999 to 2003, and we had those kinds of conversations. We didn't talk about ethics, but we talked about what do we want to see in every school, and how do we get that? We did not get there. But it's mainly the school district's job, because schools don't belong to the district, nor do they belong to the board. Schools belong to the parents, the children, the teachers, the taxpayers, and the communities that they're supposed to serve. That's what the schools belong to. Board members' jobs are to make sure that the district is responsive to the moral and ethical and cultural imperatives of the communities where they reside, the children who come out of those homes, and how we value those kinds of things at every school. So the job of the school board is to push down and empower every local school to be able to join with their communities, to be able to begin to understand, that's what we call cultural competency. If I'm teaching at 32nd Street School, I ought to know that what that community wants for those youngsters. I don't know what their priorities are. I want to know what their belief systems are. I want to know what they want to have happen for their children. And I want to be responsive at that school to the needs of that community. That's what you call moral and ethical behavior. Do I know the community? Do I know what they value? Do I value their kids? Do I understand culturally what those youngsters are dealing with when they come to the school? That's what should happen with the school board member. Anybody who wants to be in BD 1C, Board District 1C, you need to understand what the climate of the culture is that your constituents are coming out of. You need to understand what each discrete community, because this district minute. This district runs from almost up to at Hancock Park, all the way down almost to Gardena. To the west, it runs almost to Mar Vista, which is almost to Playa del Rey. And to the east, it runs, stops at Central, and a little bit of it goes all the way over to Alameda. If you have that big of a district, part of the 9th, all of the 8th, part of the 10th, and part of the 12th, you have a lot of ground to cover and a lot of things as a board member to understand about each one of those individual communities and those individual schools and those individual youngsters whose parents send them to school and want the best for them. No parent sends the bad kids to school and keeps the good ones home.
Thank you. Dr. McKenna.
Yeah, that's a big question. Ethics, for most people, I include myself in a situation. There's no such thing as absolute ethics all the time. Maybe Jesus could get away with that.
Yeah.
I'm not that one of them.
Okay.
It's like the old story, the Sophie's choice, where the woman was given a choice, which child are you going to give me to kill? And you have to pick your own child and give it to the German officer who's going to kill him. How ethical can that choice be? She might want to say, well, kill me. He said, I'm going to kill one of these children. She's got to choose. That's a hell of an ethics choice to make. One of the tough ethics choices to make for us principal. I've got a terrible teacher in my building. I've written them up, and they're still attempting. The faculty knows they're terrible. Faculty knows, please don't send me the children from that teacher's class to my class the next year, because they're not going to be on grade level. Okay? Ethical choice that a principal has to make is a tough one. Which children do I assign to that teacher when the school year starts? My worst teacher is entitled to some children. Which children do I sacrifice to this teacher? Because she or he is a legend in their own mind. And they've been there for years and years and years, miseducating, undereducated children. And the other faculty don't know what to do about it. They wait for the principal to do something about it. But they know that the children, as they come through, are not on grade level. And especially in an elementary school, when it's self-contained, it's the only person they have, the only teacher they have all year long. And they've come into the 3rd grade on grade level, walk into the 4th grade still at 3rd grade level. Now, a school board member has to have ethics as well, but often school board members come for different reasons. Some school board members are elected in another part of the district to make sure those kids are not bused into their neighborhood, and we're not going to have integration. And I remember when Rita Walters was on the board, and she was fighting with Roberta Weintraub. She called her a bitch and all this kind of stuff. There's all kind of fighting about it. I'm going to be a board member in order to stop this or start that. I'm over there trying to keep the kids in Washington High School from getting off the buses. Because the jobs are going to the left. How ethical was I? They told me pass out those PWT brochures, and I refused. I told the deputy superintendent, who they're honoring today, over at Locke. I told him, I'm not passing them out because I don't have any brochures to keep in my school, to keep the kids at Washington High. He said, well, you're not going to integrate the school. I said, I'm not trying to integrate. I'm trying to keep them from stealing my kids, to keep El Camino open and Marshall High open. And they win academic decathlons every year. We don't even have academic decathlon teams at Crenshaw and Dorsey and Manning and Fremont. Don't even have a team. So the problem is, what is ethical? And which children are disposable? Which children are not supposed to be educated? They're just bees that way. Because they've never been educated. It's okay to just say, okay, we'll keep measuring the dropouts, but we don't do anything about it. It's like wailing the pig, but you never feed the pig. Every year you say, every week you say, the pig's got a little slimmer. Okay, we keep records, keep good records, keep good records. The pig used to weigh 300 pounds, now he's 150, now he's 90 pounds. Nobody ever fed the pig, but we got good records. And the kids keep disappearing. Ethical behavior is sometimes in the heart of the ethicist. And some of the board members don't have the same ethical standards. They come there for different reasons, and it takes a great amount of skill. And I applaud Janita Hayes and anybody who's been a board member, because you get very little pay, you get very little respect, but they have more responsibility than city council people do. For example, I have to say this, a city council member, if this is his city council district, and there are potholes out there, he can tell people to fix those potholes. If you're a school board member, you don't have any ability to tell the maintenance people, fix the school in my district. You don't supervise. The superintendent does that. You can tell the superintendent, I want this fixed. Now you have to use the bullet pulpit to get him or her, whoever the superintendent is. We only have male superintendents that are unified. I don't know why. we don't have that same kind of power. We don't have that kind of staff. We just don't, as school board members. So you have to say, well, what, and the school board is bigger than the city of Los Angeles. We have a bigger budget than